Hey guys, tonight we find ourselves somewhere quiet, hidden from the harsh blaze of the midday Mesopotamian sun. Imagine the air shimmering above stone paths, the smell of wet clay and ripe dates hanging sweet in the breeze. And far off, the soft murmur of the river Tigris as it curls like a silver ribbon through the valley. Fields ripple under the weight of barley stalks. Farmers in woven robes shout to oxen who couldn't care less. And goats, as always, chew without shame. It's a world suspended in sweat and dust and stories, especially stories. You step lightly across the packed earth. Your sandals leave no mark on the dry, straw-strewn ground as you duck beneath a roof of woven palm fronds. The light instantly changes, softer, cooler, shadowed with dapple stripes like fish scales. The heat breaks against your shoulders like waves receding. You're not alone here. 5 elders, cross-legged and sun-wrinkled, look up and nod. You don't speak. There's no need. They've saved a space for you, a flattened reed mat with a folded cloth for your head. You settle in, spine still humming from the walk. The hut creaks gently in the breeze, and somewhere outside, a lizard rustles in the dry grass. This is your refuge from the sun and the stories waiting in the dark of woven shade. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you're listening from somewhere far away, let me know your location and the local time in the comments. I love seeing where this strange little river flows. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The first elder clears his throat, more for drama than need, and begins. There was a time, he says slowly, when the land was flat and dry as a burnt pot. No rivers, no marshes, just cracked soil and silence. And then, Enlil sneezed. You blink. That's not what you expected. The others nod solemnly, though one smirks like they've heard this 100 times. Enlil, Lord of Air, the elder continues, was watching the world from his sky palace. He had grown bored. Nothing to stir, nothing to scatter. And then, all at once, Chew! His arms fly out, sending a few palm shadows dancing. You chuckle despite yourself. The others do too. The sneeze shattered the silence. The wind blew downward in a spiral, gouging out the paths of what would become rivers. It roared across the dust, and where it passed, the ground broke open. Water bubbled up from deep below. The rivers were born, not from rain or God's mercy, but from a bored deity's bad timing. You settle deeper into the mat. Outside, the breeze picks up. For a moment, you swear it swirls, just like he described. The elder leans closer, eyes twinkling. Some say the Tigris carries his laughter, and the Euphrates his sigh. And when both rise together in the spring, it's Enlil having a particularly loud dream. That's the mainstream version, apparently, but another elder snorts and waves a hand dismissively. He wasn't sneezing, she mutters. He was spitting out stars. There it is, the fringe theory. He tried chewing starlight once, she continues, grinning toothlessly. Didn't go well. Spat it out, and it burned through the sky, cutting open the earth where it fell. Rivers followed, and the frogs. They came first, riding that wet light like gods on chariots. Laughter bubbles in the hut. You smile with them, but part of you wonders, are frogs secretly divine? You glance toward a mud wall where a green little shadow clings, completely unimpressed by your curiosity. One of the elders picks up a cracked jar by the fire pit and rolls it toward you. Careful, he says. That one remembers the dry times. You touch it. The clay is warm. Etched along its sides are tiny triangles. Cuneiform. Not official records, just a potter's idle daydream scratched with a stylus. It mentions the long thirst, a time before the canals were carved, before the first irrigation ditches brought water from the rivers to the crops. Historians still argue, says the smirking elder, whether the ziggurat was originally a temple or an observatory. But one thing's for sure, we knew how to move water before we moved stars. You blink slowly, letting the words settle. The ceiling above weaves shadows like a net of dreams. The breeze kisses your cheek, smelling faintly of date sap and dust. You're not sure if it's the heat or the slow, lulling rhythm of the tale, but your eyelids dip. You catch only half the next sentence. And that's why reeds always lean west. Wait, what? You lean forward, but the story's already flowed on like the river it praises. Outside, the sun slips a little lower. Inside, the world has slowed to the rhythm of breath, the scratch of jar bottoms, the whisper of palm leaves in the wind. One elder hums under his breath. Another begins gently folding a corner of cloth between her fingers. A cricket starts up somewhere under the mat. You stretch your legs. Your body begins to unwind, your mind still swimming with gods who sneeze, frogs who ride starlight, and rivers born from laughter. You've only just arrived under the palm leaf roof, and there are many more stories yet to come. The wind changes, not sharply, not like a gust that slams doors or scatters dust across threshing floors, but gently, like a breath exhaled by the earth itself. It slips through the open sides of the palm leaf hut, dragging with it the scent of warm reeds, river mud, and the faint smoke of someone's barley cake burning far across the village. An elder shifts, knees popping like dry branches. He leans forward, tapping a knuckle against the clay floor. "You've heard of Enlil," he says, his voice low. "But have you heard of the jar that tried to catch his breath?" The others groan. One waves a hand. "It's always the jar with you." He grins, undeterred. "It's a good jar." You settle back onto your folded cloth pillow, the mat warming beneath your spine, eyelids half lowered. The elder's eyes glint in the filtered sunlight. "They say," he begins, "that before writing was carved into clay, before the stars were counted or goats were taxed, yes, we used to tax goats, there was a jar, smooth, round, ordinary in every way but one. It was patient." You resist the urge to smirk. A patient jar? It sat in a courtyard for 100 years, never chipped, never moved. It listened. To what? To footsteps, to gossip, to silence, and once, just once, to the breath of a god? You glance again at the cracked water jar by the fire pit. It hasn't moved. Still ordinary, still suspicious. One day, the elder continues, Enlil passed overhead in a foul mood. He blew down in a fury, kicking up whirlwinds and tossing reeds into trees. The jar, still and open, caught a fragment of that divine wind. And, you whisper, it's still in there. The hut goes very quiet. You listen, straining, just wind rustling through fronds. A goat sneezes outside. A child laughs. No divine winds. Of course, the elder says with a shrug. It might have been just air. The others cackle. You exhale. They got you. Just a little. But another elder, the quietest one, speaks now without even raising her voice. The wind wasn't all that was caught that day. Everyone hushes. Even the breeze pauses. She says, the quiet one murmurs, that light from the moon was sealed inside a cracked jar once. Just a sliver, but it glowed for days. You raise an eyebrow. A moon jar. She nods. A priestess tried to trap moonlight for a ritual. She used river clay mixed with salt and ash, carved it with 12 signs, one for each lunar day. buried it in the marshes. You imagine it, a glowing jar in the middle of reeds and frogs, flickering like some forgotten lantern. But the jar cracked, the elder continues, and the moonlight leaked into the soil. That's why the reeds curved toward the east. Another goat sneeze. You begin to suspect they're planning these. That can't be real, someone whispers. Historians still argue, she says, whether Mesopotamian rituals used real light or symbolic representation. But I say, I saw it once. You glance toward the wall again. The light through the fronds is paler now, slightly silver. You blink. Is it the moon? No, too early. Just the sun softening. But the story clings to your thoughts, like fine silt. One of the elders, the one who'd protested the jar story earlier, pulls something from his robe. An old stylus, smoothed down to a nub. He draws in the clay dust at your feet. A circle, then a tiny line down the middle, then 3 dots. What's that? You murmur. Cuneiform, he says. It means breath, or sigh, or divine utterance, depending on who's reading it. That's not helpful. He shrugs. Welcome to Mesopotamian writing. You chuckle. The sarcasm is soothing in its own way. He goes on. We wrote with sticks on clay, knowing the rain could erase everything. Yet we still wrote. Poems. Recipes. Who owed who 3 goats? Petty temple feuds. Bad omens about eclipses. You remember reading somewhere that the world's oldest known complaint is a cuneiform tablet about a bad copper delivery. Somehow, that makes this all feel more real. The elder sighs. They bake the tablets to keep them forever. But forever is a very silly word, isn't it? You nod. Silly and human. A warm hush falls again. Someone outside begins to hum. Low, reedy, like a lullaby forgotten halfway through. You shift slightly, turning toward the center of the circle. The palm leaf roof above casts crisscrossed shadows on the walls, like nets or loose braids. There's something beautiful about the way the light filters through. Golden, yes, but also greenish, whispering of trees and riverbanks. The hut feels like it's floating, unmoored from time. You feel your breath sinking with the stories. Slow, gentle, deliberate. A strange comfort grows in your chest. Maybe it's the closeness, the dust, the cracked jar, the stylus scratch symbols that might mean breath, or sigh, or a reminder to bring figs. You're not sure anymore what's real and what's imagined, but maybe under this roof that's not the point. The wind circles again, like a cat curling into sleep. You close your eyes for a heartbeat, just to listen. A sigh, a chuckle, a goat's distant bleat. Someone scratching their scalp, someone scratching history into dust. And from the quietest corner, someone murmurs, "Next, tell them about the cedar tree." The cedar tree. You're not sure why those words stir something inside you. Maybe it's the way they were spoken, half in awe, half in warning. You shift again on your mat, eyes drawn to the hut's low entrance, where the light flickers like it's remembering something. The tree was older than kings, says the quiet elder, her voice the rustle of cloth on woven mats. Older than cities, maybe older than language. You raise an eyebrow. That old? The others nod. Not as a joke this time, but with the kind of reverence usually reserved for temple rituals or very spicy stew. There was a time, she continues, when the gods walked freely among us, and they did not always walk on roads. You imagine it. Towering beings, barefoot in the reeds, brushing against the sky with their shoulders, startling fish from irrigation ditches. One of them, some say it was Enki, others say Utu, planted a cedar tree deep in the mountains to mark a sacred promise. No one remembers the promise, just the tree. That's how sacred trees work, another elder mutters. Big deal when planted. Nobody reads the plaque after. There's a chuckle, but it fades as the story resumes. They say the tree sang. Now you're paying attention. It didn't sing words exactly, she explains, but tones, chords, vibrations that could shake mud brick walls and calm fevered babies. People came from all corners of the land to stand under its branches. Lovers made vows there. Priests wept there. A goat once fainted from pure joy. You snort softly. Seriously? Dead faint. Fell over like a sack of lentils. A pause. Historians still argue. She adds smoothly, whether Mesopotamian sacred groves were literal, symbolic, or purely mythic. But they can't explain why cedar resin was buried with kings. That gets your attention. Resin? She nods. Burned as incense, sealed in jars, painted on temple walls. It smelled like clouds might, if they were brave enough to smell like something. You close your eyes. The palm frond shadows flicker over your lids. You imagine that smell, smoky, golden, sharp, and soft, all at once. The cedar tree stood alone, she says, until it didn't. One day, a man, just a man, not a king, not a priest, cut a branch. Gasps all around. Even the goat outside makes a disapproving noise. He just wanted shade for his courtyard, she shrugs. He didn't know. But the moment the branch was cut, the tree cried out. You tilt your head. Sang again? Number cried. Sap poured from the wound like amber tears. The wind stopped. Birds froze mid-flight. And somewhere, far beneath the earth, something turned over in its sleep. Well, that's not ominous at all. What happened to the man, you ask? Depends on who tells it, she replies. Some say he became a tree. Others say he wandered the desert, looking for a way to replant the branch. One version says he grew a second head and became the world's first storyteller. That one feels oddly plausible. But the branch never took root. You can't force divine trees to grow in mortal soil. You glance at the cracked jar again. Suddenly, you feel like everything in this hut has roots. Another elder stirs. I've seen it, he says. The quiet one tilts her head. The tree? He nods slowly. In a dream, or maybe not. High in the Zagros, past the place where the river forgets its name. One tree, no leaves, but the bark hummed. I touched it. And, someone asks, it remembered me. You rub your arms. Goosebumps. Not from fear, just the kind of story that makes your skin sit up and listen. The palm fronds whisper above. A crow caws outside, and the hut briefly darkens as its shadow crosses the sun. The storytelling shifts then, as if stirred by the wind. You know, another elder says, stretching his legs. Cedar wood was used in palace doors. We carved lions into it, gods, even kings in chariots, all trapped in the grain of a sacred tree. You picture that? Doors taller than a man, carved with beasts and battles, creaking open into throne rooms filled with incense and whispered lies. Every time a door opened, the tree remembered. You blink. That's something. You wonder how many memories are embedded in furniture. Is your kitchen chair secretly judging you? We use the wood for boats too, he continues. That's the part they always forget. Not just for temples. For floating, you mean like cargo boats? He grins. And escape boats? A pause. During the Great Flood, the one that came before the scribes were sober enough to record it, a cedar boat rode the waves. Not huge. Just big enough for one person and a few goats. Always the goats. He floated for 7 nights and 7 days. When the waters receded, he planted a cedar cone at the edge of the marsh. It grew overnight. And the first words he carved into bark? You wait. I'm never doing that again. Laughter. Yours included. You sit with the story a while, not trying to understand it fully, just letting it pass over you like the wind. Quiet, sacred, tinged with laughter and resin. Outside, the sun dips lower. The shadows in the hut stretch and soften. You lean back once more. The jar glows faintly. Or maybe it's just the light. And in the cedar-scented hush, another elder says, "Let's tell them about the city that was built overnight." The city that was built overnight. At first, you think it's another exaggeration, like the goat that fainted or the singing tree. But then the elder starts speaking, and there's something in the way his voice wraps around the words, like he almost believes it himself. He shifts his weight, brushing a beetle off the mat beside him, and begins. They say it started with a footprint. You raise an eyebrow. A footprint? He nods. A perfect one, pressed into the dry riverbed. Not human, not animal, something else. It was shaped like a half moon, but deep enough to hold a whole pot of water. And it steamed, even though the sun was out. That already sounds suspicious. No one knew where it came from. The villagers just woke up and there it was, right by the fig trees. You imagine stepping out into the early morning haze, stretching, scratching, and suddenly spotting a steaming crater that smells faintly of ash and myrrh. It's not a good start to the day. They sent for the scribes, the elder says, and of course the scribes brought clay and confusion. They tried to copy the shape. It broke their tablets. One even blamed the humidity. Classic scribe behavior. But that night, he continues, the ground shook. Not violently, just a low murmur, like a drum buried deep below. And when the villagers woke again, there were walls. Walls? Smooth, white, seamless, no bricks, no mortar, just walls. 2 stories high, straight lines that hadn't existed the night before. You sit up straighter, hooked. They found courtyards, irrigation channels, even storage pits lined with lapis tiles. And in the very centre, a raised platform, ziggurat-shaped, but unfinished. Historians still argue, the elder adds, whether such sudden urban formations could be linked to ancient geological events or just mythic embellishment passed through oral tradition. But you believe it? You ask. He shrugs. I believe I walked its corridors. Another elder leans forward. You saw the glyphs? A hush falls. Even the goat outside, chewing something questionable, pauses mid-munch. I saw one, he says, carved above a doorway, not cuneiform, not pictograph, a shape I couldn't name. It hummed when I looked at it too long. Your skin prickles. And then, he says, just before sunset, it began to vanish. Vanish? Not like smoke, more like forgetting. First the platform faded, then the walls turned to dust. One courtyard sank into the earth like it had never been there. By nightfall, only the footprint remained. You sit in the dappled light of the hut, unsure whether to laugh or lean into the mystery. It's all too weird, too precise to be just a dream, but too dreamy to be fact. The elder points to the wall of the hut. I drew it once, with this. He holds up a stylus, but it kept turning into a different symbol each day. I stopped trying. A new voice enters the mix, one of the younger storytellers, still grey-bearded, but not yet entirely turned to dust. You know what I think? He says. The city never left. We just don't know how to see it anymore. You cock your head. He grins. Our eyes are trained for bricks and mud, for courtyards full of cats and shouting and fish drying on string. But this city, it was made of memory, ritual, maybe even music. You nod slowly. That actually makes a strange kind of sense. You felt places that seemed more than visible, streets that smelled like memory, rooms that hummed with something not quite sound. He continues, "There's a tablet, fragmented, stored in Uruk's southern chamber, speaks of a place called Kigar, the not now city." Not now, you echo. He nods, built in a moment, forgotten just as fast, visited only in trance or when the air turns gold before a storm. "That's nonsense," one of the older elders mutters, "but poetic nonsense." They all chuckle, but something shifts in the hut again, like the wind is waiting for you to take this seriously. Kaigar, the younger elder repeats, was said to be the place where forgotten gods wandered, where unfinished prayers linger, where a jar that once held Enlil's breath might find a shelf. You smile. A callback. Nice. And in that moment, the story slips into you, not like a history lesson, but like a gentle, amber-coloured dream. You imagine walking those pale, humming streets, touching walls that ripple under your fingers, opening doors with no hinges, stepping into sunlit rooms that smell of cedar, barley, and ink. A shadow passes by the hut's entrance. Just a cloud, just time passing. And then, without fanfare, another elder speaks. "Now tell them about the priest who married a ghost." You nearly laugh aloud. A priest who married a ghost? That's bedtime story gold. But the elder doesn't smile. His face is all sharp angles and shadow, lit by the flickering light filtering through the palm leaves. You can tell he believes this one. He begins without preamble, like he's been waiting for this tale. They say he was a young man, newly appointed at the temple of Ninhursag. Keen, humble, probably too clean-shaven for his own good. You can picture him already, wide-eyed, head full of scripture, absolutely no idea what kind of spiritual weirdness he just signed up for. His task was simple, the elder says. Sweep the altar stones before dawn, light the incense before the city woke, keep the sacred fire alive. You lean in, expecting this to go off the rails at any second. But on the first night he slept within the temple walls, he dreamt of a woman. Here we go. She stood between the pillars of the inner court. Her skin glowed like lamp oil. Her eyes were covered with a silver veil. She spoke no words, just raised her hand and pointed to the brazier. "That's normal, right?" you say. "Temple dreams?" The elder nods. "Sure, except when he woke, the fire was already lit, and the ash was shaped like a handprint. Oh, the wind rustles outside. A rooster crows, somehow late or early, as roosters always are." The dreams continued, the elder says. Each night she came closer. One night she stood beside him, took his hand, and placed it over his own heart. "Wait," you say. "That's romantic and confusing." "Exactly," he says with a half smile, because when he woke, he was reciting vows, out loud, in Sumerian, and they weren't ones he'd been taught. "That's not creepy at all," you murmur. "But it gets worse," the elder adds cheerfully. He told the head priest, thought maybe he needed purification, but the head priest just looked at him and nodded. "It's your turn," he said. You blink. "Excuse me." Apparently, the elder goes on, the ghost bride had chosen others before, priests of the same temple, every generation or so, always the same dream, always the same vows. So she's like a spirit with a type? That earns a ripple of laughter, but the elder nods solemnly. The others had all vanished, quietly. No funerals, no bodies, just one morning, gone, ash in the shape of handprints on the floor. That was all that remained. You feel a chill settle into your spine, not cold, just a kind of stillness, like even the dust in the air is listening now. But this young priest, the elder says, he did something different. You wait. He said yes. You stare. To the ghost? To the vows? To her? Your brain stutters. What does that even mean? How do you marry a ghost? He walked barefoot to the edge of the sacred marsh, the elder says, at twilight, took off his robe, placed his priest's seal in a clay bowl, and vanished beneath the water. There's silence in the hut now, the kind that feels heavy, sacred, like something's watching. They say, the elder whispers, that if you pass the temple ruins on a certain day, Nisanu 14, just before the barley festival, you'll hear two voices chanting inside. One male, one less so. That's oddly specific, you say. He nods, and oddly ignored by archaeologists. A snicker breaks the spell. Historians still argue, he adds, whether the tale represents early metaphorical expressions of divine union, or just a long-running temple prank. Either way, another elder chimes in, you've got to admit, marrying a ghost is more commitment than most mortals manage. You smile, but your thoughts wander. The image lingers, of a silver-veiled figure, of vows spoken in the dark, of ash shaped like a farewell. It's not the weirdest temple story, someone says. Oh? You prompt. No, the quiet elder says. That would be the clay pot that sang. Of course it would. But that's for later. Figures. The light in the hut changes. Afternoon has slouched toward evening. The palm fronds outside sway more slowly now, like the heat has finally loosened its grip on the day. A soft breeze slips through the doorway, and you let it wash over you, clearing away the last of the ghost bride's story. Then someone, maybe the same elder, maybe not, leans in and murmurs, "Let's tell them about the boy who mapped the sky in barley grains." The boy who mapped the sky in barley grains. You blink slowly, still digesting the last story, and this new one lands like a gentle breath on sun-warmed stone. Barley grains and stars? This feels like a softer turn. You're ready for it. The storyteller doesn't speak loudly. His voice is steady, mellow, like he's coaxing a skittish animal into the clearing. He was a shepherd's son, the elder begins, from the outskirts of Sippar, small, clever, and very bored. You smile already. You know this kid. His father expected him to count sheep. The boy preferred to count shadows, cloud shapes, things that moved overhead, things no one else noticed. You picture him lying on his back in a dry field, arms behind his head, barley stalk between his teeth, watching constellations wheel across the sky like a silent play. He didn't know what stars were, the elder says, but he knew they followed rules. You murmur, "That one always rises near the fig grove. That one hides behind the hill before winter." "Exactly," he replies, eyes glinting. The boy started using barley grains, one for each star he could see, spread them on flat clay, poked little dents where they moved each week. The grains became paths, the dents became orbits. "That's adorable," you whisper. He called it the sky field. Of course he did. The priests caught wind of it, thought it was blasphemy, said barley was for offerings, not sky games, but one junior scribe, barely older than the boy, snuck out and watched, then joined him. You nod, already picturing the two of them hunched over a slab of clay, brushing away sand, placing grains with tweezers made from bone. Every night, they'd update the sky field, even the cloudy nights, guessing based on patterns, tracking not just stars, but wandering ones. You perk up. Planets? The elder nods. They didn't call them that yet, but they knew. Some moved with rhythm, others looped strangely. They marked each with dyed barley, soaked in walnut ink, crushed flowers, even fish bile. You make a face. "Hey," he shrugs. They worked with what they had. A warm breeze stirs the woven roof above. You catch a scent, smoke, and dates and dust. One day, the elder continues, a senior astronomer arrived from Nippur, all robes and sneers, heard of this barley boy and came to watch. You imagine the boy looking up from his sky field, hands dirty, trying not to laugh as this polished academic squints at grains in mud. And you know what the astronomer said? You wait. This is blasphemous, but accurate. A ripple of laughter travels around the hut. The boy shrugged, said, "The sky listens if you feed it." You pause. That's actually poetic. Scholars still debate, the elder adds, whether the so-called barley tablets found near Sippa's outskirts were teaching tools, private prayers, or the first attempt at star cartography using food. You lean back against the hut's wall, sighing, "Honestly, I'm rooting for the barley." The boy grew older, the storyteller says, but never stopped mapping. Eventually, he carved one full cycle into clay. It showed a strange path, a star that blinked out, then returned a year later. He called it the Wandering Mouth. Sounds ominous, you say. They say, the elder murmurs, that same star was mentioned on a cylinder seal found centuries later, by a priest who said it spoke in dreams. You look up, squinting through the rafters, as if the star might wink back at you through the palm fronds. The sky's still there, someone whispers, just quieter. You imagine a dusty hut like this one, centuries earlier, the boy and his scribe friend tracing barley lines by torchlight, inventing a universe grain by grain. A pause, then a chuckle. Better than counting sheep, someone mutters. You smile, half asleep already. The shadows have thickened. The air smells like night. Then the voice comes again, soft but certain. Next, tell them about the festival where people wore masks shaped like oxen and danced backwards into the ziggurat. Of course, the festival of oxen masks and backward dances. The air in the hut cools slightly as the storyteller shifts gears, and you settle deeper into your seat, ready to follow this strange new ritual. Every year, the elder begins, when the barley harvest was just a promise and the date palms heavy with fruit, the city held a festival, one unlike any other. You nod, imagining a sun-drenched square thrumming with excitement. They called it the return to the ziggurat, but it wasn't about going forward. It was about stepping backward. You raise an eyebrow. Stepping backward? Into a ziggurat? Yes, he says, smiling at your disbelief. Everyone wore masks, carved to look like oxen heads. Massive, fierce, with curling horns painted in ochre and lapis. You try not to laugh, picturing a crowd of humans turned livestock, each one trying not to trip on their own hooves. But these weren't just costumes, the elder adds. They were sacred, made by the temple's finest artisans, each mask blessed with chants and sealed with clay. Because obviously the gods appreciate a well-dressed cow, you mutter? The elder chuckles. The ritual started at twilight. The entire city gathered at the base of the ziggurat. And then, here's the strange part, they danced backward, slowly, deliberately, down each step of the temple. You lean closer. Why backward? Historians still argue, the elder replies, whether it was symbolic, a way to unwind the year's hardships, or a way to retrace the city's origins in reverse. You imagine a slow, shuffling procession of ox-headed dancers, the flickering torchlight casting giant, swaying shadows up the temple walls. They believed this backward dance reversed time briefly, allowing the city to remember its beginnings, the first flood, the first planting, the first prayers. And the ox masks, you ask? Sacred animals, he says, strong, patient, essential to farming and ritual alike. Wearing the mask was a way to embody their spirit, to honor their strength. You chuckle softly. It was a nightmare for the mask makers. Probably smelled like barnyard for days. The elder grins. And there's more. The final step, at the temple's summit, the dancers placed offerings of barley and dates, then removed their masks. You pause, imagining the quiet, reverent moment atop the ziggurat, the city sprawling beneath in soft gold light. And then, the elder whispers, they sang. A song so old it was said to calm the rivers and stop the winds. You can almost hear it, a low rolling chant weaving through the palms and mud-brick houses, carrying the city's breath on the breeze. Some say, he adds, this festival was a memory of a lost ritual, a way to connect with ancestors who lived before the Great Flood. You nod slowly. A city remembering itself by stepping backward, masked as oxen, singing to the sky. The hut is silent for a moment, the shadows deepening, the story sinking in. Then, a soft voice breaks the quiet. Ready for the tale of the weaver who spun the wind into cloth? You smile. Always? The weaver who spun the wind into cloth. The elder's voice softens further, as if lowering the volume will help you catch the threads of this delicate tale. You know the wind that whispers through the date palms at dusk? The one that rustles the reeds by the riverbank, carrying secrets between villages? You nod, already feeling the breeze you can almost hear. Well, he continues, there was once a weaver, a woman with fingers so light they said she could catch the very air and weave it into fabric. You smile. Sounds like magic. Maybe it was, he says, eyes twinkling. Or maybe just the sharpest hands in Uruk. The woman worked in a small hut on the city's edge, where the sun slanted low and the earth smelled of baked clay and crushed dates. She wove the finest linens and dyed them with colours drawn from the river, blue like lapis lazuli, green like the marsh grasses, gold like the sun on the Euphrates. You imagine the shimmering cloth flowing in soft folds, catching light like captured wind. But her greatest gift, the elder whispers, was her ability to weave the wind itself. How? You ask, intrigued. Historians still argue, he replies, whether this was metaphor or early textile innovation. Some say she used a special loom crafted with hollow reeds, which captured the breeze as it passed. You picture an intricate wooden frame, reeds aligned like pipes, carrying soft currents through the threads. She'd open her windows wide, letting the wind sweep through her workshop, tangling with the fibres. The cloth would ripple and dance even when no one touched it. That's creepy in a good way, you admit. People from all over the city sought her fabrics, for robes, curtains, even sails for boats on the Tigris. You can almost feel the whisper of the fabric brushing against your skin. But here's the twist. The elder leans in, voice dropping to a near whisper. She was said to speak to the wind, to bargain with it, to ask for just the right breath, at just the right time. You chuckle softly, like a textile diplomat. Exactly. The elders say she was part weaver, part priestess, bridging the earthly and the invisible. You pause, thinking about how a breeze, so fleeting, could be captured in thread and turned into something tangible. The wind was believed to carry the voices of the gods, he says, to hold memories of floods, storms, and blessings. You nod, feeling the weight of those whispered stories trapped in every fold of her cloth. And when the weaver died, the elder adds quietly, they say the wind carried her spirit away, leaving behind only the fabric, still rippling, still breathing, even in still air. You shiver, not from cold, but from wonder. And so, he says, straightening. The next time you feel a breeze, remember her fingers, weaving the unseen into the scene. Outside, the palm fronds sway gently, the sun dipping lower, casting long shadows across the hut. Ready for the next story? Someone murmurs. You nod sleepily. The tale of the riverboat that sailed on a sea of stars. The riverboat that sailed on a sea of stars. The elder's voice carries a quiet excitement, like he's about to share a secret passed down through generations of fishermen and sailors along the mighty Euphrates. You know how the river winds through the land, carrying boats and dreams alike? You nod, imagining the gentle lapping of water against wooden hulls, the scent of mud and fresh fish hanging in the air. There was once a boat unlike any other, a vessel said to sail not just on water, but on the stars themselves. You raise an eyebrow, intrigued. Historians still argue whether this was a real boat or a metaphor for a spiritual journey, the elder says, but the story has survived countless retellings. You settle in as he begins. This boat was crafted from cedar, the finest wood imported from the mountains. It was small but sturdy, painted with scenes of constellations and gods. You can almost see the shimmering hull reflecting the night sky, stars mirrored in the lacquer. The boat's captain was a woman named Ninara. Known for her calm voice and steady hand, she was said to navigate both river and heavens. You smile, picturing her at the helm, eyes fixed on the horizon where water and sky blur. One night, during the festival of the new moon, Ninara set sail alone, her boat laden with offerings for the gods. The elder's voice drops to a whisper. As she drifted down the Euphrates, the water beneath her seemed to dissolve, revealing a shimmering sea of stars. You lean forward, breath catching. She sailed into the cosmos, guided by the gentle pull of the moon and the soft glow of distant planets. You think about the stillness of night, the river's quiet song, and the sky's infinite depth. Ninara's journey was said to bridge the mortal and divine, a voyage through dreams and prayers. The elder pauses. Some say the boat returned at dawn, carrying blessings for the city. You chuckle softly. A celestial delivery service. He smiles. And others believe Ninara never truly left, that she sails the starry river still, watching over the land. The wind rustles the palm leaves overhead, carrying the sound of distant water. You know, the elder says, river life was the heartbeat of Mesopotamia. Without it, none of this would exist. You close your eyes, imagining that glowing boat slipping silently through the stars, a quiet guardian of dreams. And next, he adds, we'll hear about the midnight harvest under the watchful eyes of the moon gods. The midnight harvest under moon gods' watch. You feel the night deepen around you, the gentle hum of the river blending with the soft rustle of palm leaves overhead. The storyteller's voice slips into a soothing rhythm, like a lullaby woven from ancient whispers. The farmers of Mesopotamia worked with the rhythm of the sun and moon, he begins, but there was one harvest that took place in the cool embrace of midnight. You blink slowly, picturing fields bathed in silvery moonlight, workers moving like shadows among the stalks. This was the barley harvest, the elder says, but not the usual daytime toil. This was sacred, quiet, and slow. You imagine hands gliding gently over the golden stalks, careful not to disturb the spirits said to dwell in the fields. Under the watchful eyes of the moon gods, Sin and his daughters, the farmers gathered the ripest grains. He continues, voice soft and reverent. They believed the moon blessed this harvest, making the barley sweeter and more nourishing. You let your mind drift to that cool air, the gentle glow lighting up the faces of tired but hopeful hands. The harvesters wore simple robes dyed pale blue, like the night sky, he says, and they carried lanterns made from hollowed reeds, flickering softly. You smile, thinking of the delicate light dancing on the mud walls of nearby huts. Historians still argue whether this midnight ritual was more than practical. Some say it was a way to avoid the scorching daytime heat. Others believe it was a sacred offering to the gods. You picture the rhythmic rustle of cutting barley, the whisper of prayers carried on the breeze. But here's the quirky bit, the elder adds with a grin. During the harvest, some farmers would wear masks shaped like owls, believed to be messengers of the moon. You chuckle softly, imagining a field full of silent, owl-faced harvesters. These masks were made from woven palm leaves and decorated with feathers, he explains. They thought the owl's wisdom would guide their hands and keep the harvest safe from evil. You nod, enchanted by the idea of silent watchers under the stars. And when the harvest was done, the storyteller says, the barley was taken to the temple, where it was ground and baked into bread for the entire community. You inhale deeply, tasting the imagined scent of fresh bread mingling with the cool night air. The moon gods watched over the fields, the people, and the grain, binding them together in a quiet circle of life. You feel your eyelids grow heavy, the lull of the story wrapping around you like a soft blanket. And soon, the elder whispers, we'll journey to the royal gardens, where the queen's secret blooms under moonlight. You smile, ready for the next gentle tale. The queen's secret garden, blooming at moonlight. The warm air around you feels softer now, thick with the scent of crushed dates and desert blooms, as the elder's voice takes on a quieter, more intimate tone. In the heart of the city, he says, beyond the bustle of markets and temples, lies a secret garden, hidden behind high mud brick walls and heavy wooden doors. You imagine creeping ivy climbing over cracked plaster, the soft sound of water trickling from a small fountain, and moonlight weaving silver threads through dense foliage. This was the Queen's garden, a place only a few trusted souls ever entered, the elder continues. They say she tended it herself, walking barefoot on the cool earth, whispering prayers to the plants. You picture her hands tracing the delicate petals of night-blooming flowers, her breath mingling with the fragrance of jasmine and myrrh. The Queen loved the moon, the storyteller says softly. She believed it gave her power, gentle but fierce, to nurture life in the harsh desert. You feel the hush of nighttime settling, the garden alive with unseen movement, the rustle of leaves, the flutter of moth wings. Historians still argue, he murmurs, whether these gardens were purely ornamental or used for secret rituals, perhaps even healing. You nod slowly, imagining the Queen mixing crushed herbs under silver lamps, crafting medicines whispered to soothe both body and spirit. But here's the unusual part, he says with a knowing smile. The Queen's favourite bloom was said to open only at the touch of moonlight, its petals glowing faintly like stars. You lean closer, caught by the mystery. They called it the lunar blossom, a flower that didn't appear in any other garden. You imagine the pale petals unfolding in slow motion, releasing a scent that was at once sweet and sharp, like ancient honey mixed with desert wind. Some say the Queen's power came from that flower, the elder whispers, that it held the secret to life and renewal in a land where water was a gift, not a given. You close your eyes, letting the imagined garden wrap around you like a silk shawl. And when the moon was full, the elder adds, the queen would gather her closest friends and tell stories under the stars, stories that no one else ever heard. The night feels alive with possibility, the garden a sanctuary where history and myth bloom side by side. Next, he says, voice gentle as a breeze, we'll visit the cuneiform scribes who recorded dreams on clay tablets. You sigh contentedly, ready to follow wherever the night takes you. The cuneiform scribes and their clay dream tablets. The elder's voice lowers further, taking on the reverent tone of someone about to reveal a sacred secret. As you imagine the warm glow of a clay oven and the crisp scent of fresh mud. In Mesopotamia, he begins, writing was not just words, it was magic, power, and memory all pressed into soft clay. You picture a small, dimly lit room where scribes sit cross-legged, styluses poised, eyes half closed in concentration. These scribes were the keepers of dreams, the elder says, recording visions, omens, and stories on tablets no bigger than your palm. You lean in, intrigued. Historians still argue whether these tablets were personal journals or sacred objects meant to guide kings and priests. You trace the imagined wedge-shaped impressions, marvelling at the skill it must take to carve language into clay. But here's the quirky part. He smiles. Some scribes used a special dream script, a secret subset of cuneiform, believed to capture the essence of dreams themselves. You grin. Secret scripts? Like ancient emojis? The elder chuckles. Something like that. They'd write symbols for rivers flowing backward, or trees growing upside down, trying to pin down the slippery meaning of dreams. You imagine the puzzlement on a king's face, reading a tablet full of cryptic signs. Some tablets contained warnings, the elder says, voice lowering, like omens of floods or strange creatures lurking in the marshes. You shiver slightly, the flicker of torchlight casting dancing shadows on the walls. But others were gentle, dreams of harvests, rain, and peace. You nod, comforted by the idea that even in ancient times people sought hope in the night stories. Most fascinating, the elder adds, is that some tablets have been found with fingerprints, remnants of the scribes who held these dreams. You smile, imagining the touch of those long-gone hands, connecting past and present. And the tablets were baked hard in the sun or ovens, meant to last forever, or until the gods decided otherwise. You pause, feeling the weight of history beneath your fingertips. And next, the elder says softly, we'll listen to the lullabies sung by fishermen by the Euphrates at dawn. You breathe out slowly, ready to drift deeper into this ancient world. The fishermen's lullabies by the Euphrates at dawn. The dawn stretches softly over the horizon, spilling gentle gold and pale pink light across the calm waters of the Euphrates. You feel the coolness of early morning brushing your skin as the city slowly awakens, and the air is filled with the subtle scent of wet reeds and fresh earth. The storyteller's voice returns, low and rhythmic, like the gentle pulse of the river itself. Before the sun fully rises, he begins, the fishermen gather at the river's edge, their boats rocking softly, preparing for the day ahead. But before they cast their nets, they sing, lullabies meant to calm the river and invite its bounty. You imagine them sitting in small groups, their faces illuminated by flickering oil lamps, eyes half closed as their voices rise in slow, soothing melodies. These songs carry the weight of generations, weaving together hope, respect, and the timeless dance between man and nature. The lullabies are as old as the river, the elder continues, passed down from father to son, mother to daughter. They're not just songs but prayers, whispered requests to the water spirits who control the fish and the flow. You picture the water shimmering as if responding, the gentle ripple of the river echoing their words. Their voices are deep and calm, soft enough to keep the river's creatures undisturbed, yet steady enough to be heard over the lapping waves. Historians still debate, he says thoughtfully, whether these songs had magical effects or were simply a way to focus and calm the fishermen's minds before a long day. Either way, the rhythm of the lullabies helped them work together, their movements synchronized like the ebb and flow of the river itself. You lean in, imagining the scene more vividly. The fishermen's hands are rough from years of toil, their boats patched with care, sails ready to catch the early breeze. Their lullabies speak of the river's moods, its calm moments, its sudden floods, and the mysterious depths hiding untold secrets. One particularly interesting tidbit, the elder adds with a smile, is that some lullabies mimic the sounds of the river itself. Soft splashes, the cries of birds, even the rustle of the palms. It's as if the fishermen try to speak the river's own language, hoping it will answer in kind. You chuckle softly, imagining a chorus of human and river voices mingling in the cool morning air. The lullabies often mention ancient gods, he says, like Enki, the god of water and wisdom, who was believed to protect the fishermen and guide their nets. They would ask Enki for safe passage, plenty of fish, and calm waters. The elder's voice grows softer, almost reverent. There's a story told that once, during a particularly harsh drought, the fishermen sang their lullabies for days without rest. The river seemed silent at first, but then, on the seventh dawn, the waters returned, swollen and full, as if answering their prayers. You feel the quiet power of that moment, the sense of deep connection between people and their environment. Some say these lullabies were also used to soothe children, he adds. Fishermen would sing them to their babies, passing on the love for the river and the hope for a good catch. You imagine a child nestled in a hammock woven from palm fibers, rocked gently as the lullabies float through the air like soft waves. And here's a quirky fact, the elder chuckles. Some fishermen believed that if you sang the lullabies in the wrong order or at the wrong time, the river might get angry and hide its fish away for a whole season. Talk about pressure! You laugh quietly, picturing a grumpy river sulking beneath the water. The lullabies are written in a language that mixes Sumerian and Akkadian, both ancient tongues long gone, but alive in these songs. You marvel at how voices from thousands of years ago still ripple through time, connecting you with people who lived in a world so different, yet so similar. The lullabies end as the sun rises higher, their pace quickening like the river's current, signalling the start of work, the elder explains. And as the fishermen cast their nets, the last notes hang in the air, soft, hopeful, and full of promise. You feel your own breath slow, matching the steady rhythm of the river and the song. Historians still argue, the elder says, whether these lullabies influenced other ancient cultures or were unique to Mesopotamia's river life. But one thing's clear, they were part of a sacred cycle, a reminder that life, like the river, flows with patience and care. You glance out toward the glowing water, imagining those ancient voices rising and falling with the current, carrying hopes as timeless as the stars. And next, the elder promises gently, we'll drift to the quiet libraries where ancient wisdom was kept on fragile reeds and precious clay. The soft morning breeze carries the faint echo of those lullabies, mingling with the steady murmur of the awakening city. You feel yourself drifting deeper into a calm, ancient dream. The quiet libraries guarding ancient wisdom on clay and reeds. The morning light grows warmer and clearer, spilling through the palm leaves outside your shaded hut. The storyteller's voice flows gently, inviting you to enter a quieter world. A sanctuary of knowledge where the past is preserved in soft clay and fragile reeds. In ancient Mesopotamia, he begins, knowledge wasn't stored in dusty books or flashing screens, but in simple, humble materials, clay tablets and bundles of reeds. You imagine rows of low shelves inside a cool, shadowy room, lined with tablets, inscribed with tiny wedge-shaped marks, cuneiform writing that looks like little arrowheads pressed into mud. The air smells faintly of dry earth and resin, preserved over millennia. These libraries weren't for casual reading, the elder explains. They were temples of wisdom, places where priests, scribes, and scholars carefully copied and guarded everything from laws and hymns to recipes and star charts. You picture a scribe hunched over a low table, a reed stylus in hand, delicately pressing symbols into wet clay before baking the tablets in the sun, or a kiln to harden them for eternity. Historians still debate the exact organization of these libraries, the elder says thoughtfully. Some think they were early forms of archives, while others suggest they also functioned like schools, where knowledge was passed down through apprenticeship. You nod, picturing students quietly practicing their writing, the scratch of stylus against clay mingling with whispered lessons. But here's the quirky part, he adds with a smile. Some tablets contain bizarre, almost poetic entries, like recipes for magical potions or lists of omens that seem more like dream journals. You chuckle, thinking how ancient scholars might have mixed practical knowledge with mystical beliefs in ways we find strange today. One famous example, the elder continues, is the Epic of Gilgamesh, a long poem inscribed on tablets, blending history, myth, and deep human questions about life and death. You imagine this epic story, thousands of years old, travelling across time to reach your ears now. A whispered conversation between you and the ancient world. Another fascinating detail, the elder says, voice lowering slightly, is that some tablets bear the fingerprints of their creators, tiny marks left when the clay was still soft. You picture those fingerprints, a tactile connection bridging thousands of years, reminding you that these ancient scholars were people just like you, curious, thoughtful, and eager to leave a mark. The libraries were often attached to temples or palaces, making them centers of both spiritual and political power, he explains. Priests used the texts to interpret the will of the gods, while rulers consulted scribes to keep order. You think about the weight those words must have carried, shaping laws, rituals, and daily life. Historians still argue whether some tablets were meant to be secret, read only by the elite, or if knowledge was more openly shared, the elder adds, but it's clear that literacy was rare and highly valued. You imagine the pride and responsibility of being a scribe, a guardian of words, in a world where most people couldn't read or write. And here's a quirky tidbit, he says, smiling again. Scribes sometimes made mistakes, which they corrected by scratching out marks or writing notes on the tablet edges. Early proofreaders, if you will. You laugh softly, picturing a frustrated scribe muttering under their breath, erasing a stubborn wedge. The preservation of these tablets is a miracle, the elder reflects. Sun-baked or kiln-fired, many have survived thousands of years buried beneath the soil, waiting for modern archaeologists to uncover their stories. You feel a thrill at the thought of dust-covered hands brushing away centuries to reveal voices long silent. "And the reeds?" you ask quietly. "Oh yes," he replies. In addition to clay tablets, scribes also used bundles of papyrus-like reeds, woven and pressed into sheets. These were lighter and easier to carry, but far more fragile. You imagine fragile scrolls carefully stored in wooden boxes, their soft texture a contrast to the hard, sun-baked clay. Historians are still piecing together how these materials were used side by side. He says, but both tell us about a civilization that treasured knowledge, stories, and communication. The elder's voice softens, inviting you to rest in the calm of this ancient library, surrounded by silent tablets and fragile reeds. Next, we'll explore the quiet power of the ziggurat, the city's towering heart. You breathe deeply, feeling the steady pulse of history echo through these quiet halls, as if the ancient scribes themselves are watching, waiting to share their secrets. The towering heart of the city, the ziggurat's quiet power. The sun has climbed higher now, casting long shadows over the city's bustling streets and bringing warmth to the cracked mud-brick walls. The elder's voice takes on a reverent tone as you picture the massive, stepped structure rising above the crowded homes and narrow alleys. The ziggurat, a city's heartbeat, silent and enduring. This towering monument, he begins, was more than just a building. It was the bridge between earth and sky, the place where gods and humans might meet. You imagine the monumental stairs, carved from baked clay and stone, worn smooth by countless feet, ascending and descending in measured steps, their echoes muted by the dry desert air. Historians still argue whether the ziggurat was primarily a temple or an astronomical observatory. He says thoughtfully, "Some think the priests climbed to the top to watch the stars and read the heavens, while others believe it was strictly a sacred place for rituals." You feel the quiet grandeur of the structure, its tiers like giant steps to the heavens, reaching upward into endless blue. The ziggurat's walls were often coated in brightly coloured plaster, reds, blues, and golds, designed to shimmer in the sunlight, making the structure visible from miles around. You picture the gleaming monument glowing like a beacon, guiding travellers and worshippers alike. Inside, narrow corridors and chambers sheltered sacred objects and statues of gods. The elder continues. Access was restricted. Only priests, kings, and a few chosen could enter these inner sanctums. You imagine the hushed whispers and flickering torches within these shadowed halls. Sacred space, thick with incense and ancient power. But here's an interesting tidbit, he adds with a smile. Some ziggurats were built over earlier temples or burial grounds, layering history one upon another. You think of the city's ever-changing landscape, how the past and present coexist in brick and dust. The structure's stepped design might also have practical reasons, he explains. It helped protect the core from floods and earthquakes, a clever blend of religion and engineering. You marvel at the ancient builder's skill, raising such massive monuments with no cranes or modern tools, relying on human strength, simple machines, and a lot of patience. And speaking of patience, the elder chuckles, construction could take decades, sometimes spanning the reigns of several kings. You imagine generations of workers hauling bricks under the blazing sun, sharing stories and songs to keep spirits high. The ziggurat was a symbol of the city's prosperity and divine favour. He says quietly, it stood as a reminder that the gods watched over the people, offering protection and blessings. You feel the weight of centuries settle around you, the ziggurat's presence, a steady pulse beneath the noise of daily life. Some scholars suggest that festivals and ceremonies on the ziggurats' terraces marked the changing seasons, blending religious ritual with the practical rhythms of farming and water management. You picture priests and worshippers gathered under a sky full of stars, flames flickering as they honor the gods who controlled rain, fertility, and harvest. And there's this quirky detail, the elder says with a grin. Some ziggurats were built with tiny niches where messages or offerings could be hidden, secret messages to the gods or future kings. You smile, thinking of those hidden words buried in the walls, waiting to be discovered. Historians still puzzle over whether these were acts of faith or simple superstition, but they show the deeply personal nature of worship. You lean back, letting the image of the ziggurat soak into your mind, the massive, silent monument standing guard over a city alive with stories and prayers. And next, the elder promises, we'll wander through the bustling market squares where traders from distant lands meet. The city hums around you, a living tapestry woven from stone, spirit, and human endeavour. You close your eyes, letting the ziggurat's steady presence lull you deeper into the gentle embrace of history. The bustling market squares where distant traders meet. The sun is now high overhead, warming the streets of the city where the market awakens to life. You step through narrow alleyways and emerge into a vast square, pulsing with the hum of barter and chatter, colours and smells swirling around you like a vivid dream. The market was the heart of the city's daily rhythm. The elder's voice flows gently as you take it all in. Here, farmers, craftsmen, and traders from far-off lands gather to exchange goods, stories, and smiles. You imagine the square filled with wooden stalls shaded by woven palm fronds, each one bursting with treasures. Fresh dates glistening with dew, baskets of golden barley, jars of fragrant spices, and colourful textiles fluttering in the breeze. The merchants spoke many tongues, the elder says thoughtfully. Sumerian, Akkadian, and even languages from distant cities like Elam and Dilmun. The market was a crossroads of cultures. You picture a merchant carefully weighing silver shekels against piles of grain, negotiating prices with a farmer whose hands are rough, but eyes bright with pride. Historians still debate how regulated these markets were. He adds, whether there were strict rules, or if much of the trade depended on trust and tradition. You lean closer, catching the scent of sweet figs and sharp mint mingling in the warm air. A quirky fact, he chuckles, is that some merchants carried tiny tokens or clay seals to prove their identity, ancient business cards, if you will. You smile at the thought, imagining scribes pressing personalised seals into soft clay to mark goods and contracts. The markets weren't just about goods, he continues softly. They were places of news, gossip, and even performance. Storytellers and musicians often gathered to entertain and share tales. You imagine children darting between stalls, laughing, while musicians play reed flutes and drums, filling the air with lively rhythms. The exchange of ideas was as important as the exchange of goods, the elder says. Philosophy, religious beliefs, and even new farming techniques travelled along these crowded lanes. You feel the energy buzzing around you, the push and pull of commerce, the blending of tradition and innovation. Some traders specialised in luxury items, lapis lazuli from distant mountains, finely crafted jewellery, and rare incense, while others dealt in everyday essentials, he explains. You picture a stall covered in shimmering beads and polished stones, a treasure trove for the wealthy elite. Historians still argue about the scale of international trade at the time, the elder muses. Was Mesopotamia the centre of a vast trade network, or were most goods locally sourced? You consider the vast deserts and rivers connecting city-states, the slow but steady flow of caravans and boats. And here's a curious detail, he says with a sly smile. Market inspectors sometimes used disguised jars filled with sand to test scales and weights. Ancient quality control with a playful twist. You laugh quietly, picturing inspectors sneaking around the market, catching careless vendors. The market was also a social hub, he adds, where people met friends, celebrated festivals, and even resolved disputes. You see groups gathering under date palms, sharing stories as the sun begins to dip toward the horizon. And soon, the elder says softly, we'll watch the river life settle as the day fades, fishermen hauling in their last nets. The sounds of the marketplace fade gently as the evening draws near, wrapping you in the soothing rhythm of an ancient city's heartbeat. You breathe deeply, letting the rich tapestry of sights and sounds carry you deeper into the warm embrace of history. The gentle flow of river life, fishermen, farmers, and quiet moments by the water. The sun begins its slow descent, casting golden hues over the winding river that breathes life into the land. You find yourself on a soft, muddy bank, watching the gentle ripple of water as fishermen prepare their nets and farmers pause from their daily toil. The river is both a giver and a keeper of stories. The rivers, Tigris and Euphrates, were the lifeblood of Mesopotamia, the elder murmurs softly, voice blending with the gentle rustle of palm leaves. They brought water for crops, fish for meals, and the very soil beneath your feet. You imagine farmers knee-deep in the rich mud, carefully planting barley and wheat, their hands guided by tradition as much as by need. Historians agree the Mesopotamian civilization thrived largely because of its mastery over irrigation, the elder explains. Canals, dikes, and reservoirs channeled river waters, turning deserts into fertile fields. You feel the moist earth between your fingers and hear the distant laughter of children playing near the water's edge. A quirky fact, he adds with a smile, fishermen sometimes carried small idols or charms to protect them from water spirits or unpredictable currents. You chuckle quietly, picturing a fisherman tying a tiny figure to his boat, whispering prayers to unseen beings. Some rituals involved offerings to the river gods, the elder continues, throwing small bowls of grain or fish into the flowing water to secure safe passage and abundant catch. You watch a fisherman carefully cast his net, the sun glinting off the woven mesh as it arcs through the air. Historians still debate the precise identity of the river deities, he says thoughtfully. Was the river a single god, or a family of spirits representing different parts of the water's flow? You imagine ancient priests performing ceremonies on the banks, chanting softly as the current carries their words downstream. The daily rhythm of river life was slow and steady, matching the pulse of the water, he says. Mornings began with fishermen heading out, evenings with families gathered to clean nets and share stories. You smell the mingling scents of fresh fish, wet reeds, and the faint smoke of evening fires. Farmers carefully timed their planting and harvesting to the river's floods, he explains, which could both nourish and destroy depending on their strength. You feel a gentle breeze brushing your face, carrying whispers of ancient wisdom and the patience of those who live by the river's mercy. Here's a quirky detail, he says with a grin. Some farmers used to carve little boats out of clay and float them on the river as part of a fertility ritual, tiny vessels carrying big hopes. You laugh softly, picturing these miniature boats bobbing along the water like messages to the gods. The river was also a highway, the elder adds, allowing traders and travelers to journey between cities, carrying goods, ideas, and news. You see a boat laden with baskets of dates and woven mats, gently pushed along the current by a lone oarsman. Historians still puzzle over how river transport influenced political boundaries and cultural exchange, he muses. Was control over the waterways the key to power? You sense the river's quiet dominance, its steady flow, shaping not just the land, but the fate of civilizations. As night falls, the elder whispers, the river takes on a different character, calm, reflective, almost magical. You watch the water mirror the deepening sky, stars twinkling like scattered jewels. You feel the deep connection of people to the river, how it sustained, inspired, and humbled them. You breathe deeply, letting the river's steady heartbeat lull you closer to sleep. The quiet evening rituals, twilight prayers, and moonlit offerings. As the sky softens into shades of lavender and deep blue, the city begins to slow, wrapping itself in the tender calm of evening. You settle beside a small shrine tucked into a quiet courtyard, where a single oil lamp flickers, casting dancing shadows on worn stone. The air is cool now, fragrant with the scent of crushed herbs and burning frankincense. The close of day was sacred, the elder whispers, voice low like the rustling of date palms in the night breeze. Families gathered to honor the gods, thanking them for protection and asking for blessings through the dark hours. You imagine a mother lighting a small fire, carefully arranging offerings of bread and fresh figs, while children sit quietly nearby, eyes half closed, lulled by the soft murmurs of prayer. Historians have found many artifacts from these rituals, the elder explains. Small altars, inscribed tablets with prayers, and intricate clay vessels designed to hold sacred oils. You feel the warmth of the flickering flame as it casts gentle light over painted walls. Scenes of myth and legend etched faintly in the plaster. A fascinating detail, he says with a gentle smile, is the belief that certain stars guided the prayers, their movements in the night sky thought to carry messages directly to the gods. You gaze upward, imagining priests watching the heavens, reading the silent language of the cosmos. Historians still debate whether these celestial observations were purely spiritual or early forms of astronomy, he muses. Either way, the sky was a constant companion in their faith. You smell the faintest hint of myrrh, swirling in the cool night air, blending with the sound of distant water flowing. The rituals were both communal and deeply personal, the elder says. Some prayers were recited aloud, others whispered in secret, each meant to bind the living to the divine. You picture an elder tracing ancient symbols in the dirt, fingers moving carefully, while younger voices hum soft melodies. A quirky fact, he chuckles, some families kept tiny figurines of household gods in their homes, believed to protect against misfortune and bring good dreams. You smile, thinking of these miniature guardians perched silently on shelves, watching over sleep. The moon was especially important, he continues. Its phases marked the passage of time and guided many ceremonies. You watch the pale orb rise, casting silver light over the palm fronds and the quiet city. Historians still argue about the origins of some moon-related festivals. He adds, whether they began as agricultural celebrations or purely spiritual events. You feel a profound sense of calm as the city exhales the day's heat, slipping gently into night. The final prayers often included hopes for the next day's harvest, safe travels, and the health of loved ones, the elder whispers. You let the peaceful cadence of the ritual wash over you, your eyelids growing heavy with the weight of centuries of whispered prayers. You breathe in the cool night air, feeling the steady rhythm of a world both ancient and alive. The silent night, dreams, stars, and the city's quiet breath. The city has settled into deep slumber, its streets emptied, and the soft rustling of palm fronds is the only sound breaking the night's silence. You lie beneath the open sky, the cool earth pressing gently against your back, as countless stars shimmer overhead like scattered gems set against velvet. The river's gentle murmur blends with the occasional call of a night bird, creating a lullaby older than memory. The night was a time for dreams and reflection, the elder's voice drifts softly, when the living might touch the world of spirits and gods. You close your eyes, feeling the cool breeze on your skin and the distant glow of the ziggurat's sentinel presence. Dreams were considered messages, he explains, sometimes warnings, sometimes blessings. Priests interpreted these visions to guide kings and common folk alike. You imagine the shadowy chambers where priests slept, awaiting dreams, and the hushed consultations at dawn. Historians still debate how much importance was placed on dreams, whether they were spiritual tools or psychological puzzles. He adds thoughtfully, "You feel yourself slipping between the boundary of waking and sleeping, where the ancient world's mysteries grow vivid and strange." A quirky tidbit, the elder whispers, was the practice of leaving small offerings under pillows or at doorways, hoping to invite good dreams and keep nightmares away. You smile gently, picturing tiny bowls of honey and barley left like little gifts to unseen protectors. The stars were guides, calendars, and stories, he says softly. Constellations told tales of gods, heroes, and the eternal battle between light and darkness. You picture the ancient skies painted with figures of lions, bulls, and great serpents, their stories whispered in quiet awe. Historians still argue whether these star patterns were universal or uniquely Mesopotamian, he muses, but their impact on culture and religion is undeniable. You feel the vastness of the night sky pressing close, comforting and infinite. The city's breath slows, as if it too is dreaming, the elder continues. Walls, canals and gardens holding secrets until the sun returns. You imagine the animals resting, the last fishermen's boats tethered by the shore, and the fires in distant homes reduced to glowing embers. As you drift, you become part of this endless cycle, time folding, stories weaving, and the heart of Mesopotamia beating softly beneath the stars. The river's song becomes a whisper, the night deepens, and your breath matches the gentle rhythm of the ancient world. You feel safe, connected, and cradled by a history that stretches across millennia. The first light of dawn, renewal and quiet promises. Slowly, the sky begins to soften from midnight blue to the faintest pink, a delicate glow spreading over the horizon. You open your eyes just as the first birds stir, their songs greeting the returning sun. The city breathes again, stretching awake beneath a sky full of promise. The dawn was a sacred moment. The elder's voice flows like the morning breeze, symbolizing rebirth and new beginnings. You feel the cool morning air tinged with the scent of damp earth and blooming flowers as farmers prepare to greet the day. Historians note that the Mesopotamians often dedicated morning prayers to the sun, god Shamash, he explains. He was believed to bring justice and light to the world. You imagine temples glowing softly in the early light, priests raising their hands in reverence. A quirky detail, he chuckles. Some people would wash their faces with river water at sunrise, believing it purified both body and spirit. You smile at the thought, picturing a line of villagers cupping water in their hands, the chill waking them gently. Historians still debate how daily rituals shaped community life, whether they reinforced social order or fostered spiritual connection, he muses. You watch as fishers ready their boats once more, nets folded carefully, faces calm and expectant. The city stirs quietly, the elder says. Farmers tend their fields, artisans prepare their tools, and children chase each other through narrow streets. You sense the cycle of life beginning anew, the steady march of time wrapped in simple, sacred acts. The river gleams with the sun's first kiss, he adds softly, and you feel a deep gratitude, a connection to all who have lived here before. You breathe in the fresh air, the warmth growing, the world unfolding with gentle certainty. Now, as your journey comes to a close, you carry with you the calm, the stories, and the spirit of this ancient land. The elder's voice fades, the light grows stronger, and the promise of a new day settles softly over your mind. You close your eyes once more, feeling the peace of the palm leaf roof sheltering you through time. Now that our journey under the palm leaf roof comes to a gentle close, take a deep, slow breath and feel the calm wrap around you like a soft, warm blanket. The stories you've heard, the quiet river currents, the flickering flames of evening rituals, the busy markets, and the silent stars overhead, are not just echoes of a long-gone time, but whispers still alive in the night. Let your thoughts drift like a slow-moving boat on the Euphrates, carried effortlessly by the gentle current of history. Imagine the cool mud beneath your feet, the rustle of date palms in the breeze, the faint glow of oil lamps in simple homes, each a quiet moment in a vast tapestry woven over thousands of years. You are safe here, cradled by the steady heartbeat of an ancient world that moved with patience, reverence, and a deep connection to nature and the divine. No rush, no conflict, just the slow unfolding of day into night and night into day again. If your eyes are growing heavy, it's okay to let go now, to surrender to the soothing rhythm of history and dreams. Imagine the ziggurat standing tall, watching over the land, silent and eternal, as your breath slows and your mind softens. Remember, every story is a thread linking us to the past and to each other. So when you wake, carry a little of this peace with you and know that the ancient world is never truly far away. Sleep well, and may your dreams be as gentle and rich as the river's song beneath the palm leaves. Sweet dreams.